There's always a lot of interests out there from big real estate companies like Zillow and Redfin, as well as the real estate agents and mortgage brokers. It's really all in their best interest to tell you that yesterday was the best time to buy a house, but the second best time to buy is today. And that is no different right now in the middle of 2025, because Zillow just came out with a story saying that this is why it's actually still a good time to buy a house. Well, if Zillow says it is, then it must be, right? Because after all, Zillow has a prediction that home prices are going to drop 0.8% by the end of the year, which would be the first annual decline since 2011. So senior economist over at Zillow, I don't even know how to say this guy's name, Orphe Devangi, I don't know, I'm not going to say it again. He says that you need to take advantage of this window of opportunity. He says that competition has been muted by high mortgage rates and broader economic jitters, including stubborn inflation and concerns about tariffs. Meanwhile, inventory has grown and buyers have more choice and leverage, and 27% of listings include a price cut, which is the highest of any month since January of 2018. Now, on the surface, all that does sound good, and I will tell you, with somebody who has a lot of experience in this field, that it is a better time to buy now than it probably has been over the past 3 years or so, but by no means is it actually a good time to buy. It's better than it was, but it's not good. And something that people need to understand is all the reasons that they're highlighting right now are probably going to persist. The high interest rates, those aren't going anywhere. The higher inventory, that's not going anywhere either, as more people are kind of pushed into a we need to sell situation today, or are trying to take advantage of prices while they're still high. Less competition, that's not going anywhere either, because the vast majority of people can't even afford to buy at today's prices and interest rates. So there's no reason to believe that competition is going to just all of a sudden pick up. So trying to create this false sense of urgency of why you need to buy today and why it's a good time to buy based on those market trends is just fake news, because none of those things are poised to go away anytime soon with the way things are looking right now. But he's saying, well, the window of opportunity could close as just as soon as it opened, because inventory growth is starting to slow down. There's a small rate cut likely in sight, maybe at the next September Fed meeting, as if somehow that's going to bring mortgage interest rates down. Well, we already know that rate cuts from the Fed do not bring mortgage interest rates down, because once the Fed started cutting interest rates in September of 2024, mortgage rates have been on the rise ever since. Now, they did go all the way up to mid sevens and then come back down to the mid sixes and now closer to 7 again. So they did fluctuate, but they didn't come down like the Fed and everybody else was thinking they were going to. And that's because mortgage rates are not related to what the Fed does. Mortgage rates are tied into what the 10-year Treasury is doing. And Treasury investors want higher yields on their investment because inflation is still running way too hot. And that's something else that is likely not to change anytime soon. They flat out ask this guy this question. They say, well, if home prices are poised to go down by the end of the year, is it better to buy now or to wait? Well, the obvious answer to that is it's better to wait. If you know something is going to get cheaper, it's almost a guarantee, why on earth would you buy it right now? Here's the answer that this senior economist at Zillow gives. He says, for people who can afford to buy right now, I tell them not to try to time the market, because you just never know where mortgage rates are going to go. Well, we know they're going to stay right where they're at for the foreseeable future, because inflation is not going to be going down. That we do know. Then they even acknowledge here in this same story, so clearly this guy's contradicting himself. He says, well, a lot of people said last year, we'll wait till the first rate cut from the Fed. That came in September, but mortgage rates didn't go down, they actually went up. We also do not expect mortgage rates to have a major drop. So that's how you know that this guy is speaking from a frame of mind of we just need the real estate market to continue chugging along because Zillow's livelihood depends on it, not because it's actually the right move for the average consumer. He also says you should take advantage of whatever you can get, because when sales slow down like they are right now, sellers also tend to pull back. Now, There is some truth to that because we have seen a big surge in delistings, which is sellers taking their homes off the market. But let me remind you, even with that surge of delistings, inventory on the US housing market is still sitting at pre-pandemic levels right now, pretty much everywhere. And the inventory will continue going up because people are not buying. So the absorption rate on the US housing market is much slower than the rate of inventory coming to market. And as long as that dynamic remains true, the overall inventory level is going to continue creeping up. And something else to keep in mind is all of these sellers who delisted are either in one of two boats. Either one, they don't have any financial need to sell. They just wanted to test the waters and see if they could sell at the price they were hoping to get. And if they didn't, no big deal. We'll just keep trying. I see a lot of that here and in Miami. You get that. But the other type of seller who delisted pulled the house off the market because maybe they're not in a hurry also, but they do need or want to sell within the next year or two. It's on their priority list. So they might have pulled the listing off the market for now, but rest assured it will come back sooner than later as they give it a second go around whenever their real estate agent tells them, well, now's a better time. So one thing I will agree with on this Zillow economist is that buyers have more bargaining power. This is true. You absolutely do have more bargaining power now than buyers have had in a while. That's good. Doesn't mean it's a good time to buy. And then he says, this moment is here, but it might not last very long. And that's why I advise buyers who can afford to transact right now to not sit there and hope for a housing crash, which usually comes with an increase in unemployment. And if you don't have a job, it's very difficult to qualify for a mortgage in the first place. Yeah, and also if you buy right now and you become a statistic and you are unemployed because the economy crashes, then you're going to lose your house anyways, whether you buy today or you wait until this happens. You're probably better off waiting and not buying the house. And then if you lose your job, you don't have anything to lose. You're not going to lose the house in a foreclosure situation and lose all that down payment money and any equity you have in place. And just from reading these responses to these questions, right away I can already just tell that these answers come from a place of a business, a business trying to sell you something rather than from the place of a real estate investor, somebody who knows the market, or coming from the place of an experienced real estate agent that has already seen the market come to a full crash and then go back up and start to come back down again. The next question they ask is, which location should buyers seek out for a bargain? This one he's kind of right on, actually. He says housing is very much a local story. There are markets where you haven't seen a lot of building, like the Northeast and the Midwest. So there's more competition, and obviously prices keep going up in these areas for the most part. Although some spots are starting to soften up, especially in the Midwest. Then, of course, in the Sun Belt of the United States, the southern part of the country, you have Georgia, Florida, Texas, Carolinas. Prices in these areas are starting to drop negative year over year, and the inventory is really starting to explode. So you have a lot more choices to pick from over there. My suggestion for somebody who's considering buying right now, I know it might be tempting to buy in an area where prices are coming down right now because it seems like, wow, you can finally get a better deal than you could a year ago. I would highly caution you against that because the prices are likely going to continue falling for quite some time, because that's at least what history shows us will happen. It's not a guarantee, but that's what historical data implies. We all know that summertime is typically when gas prices are the highest, and I'm all about saving money on this channel, which is why today's video is sponsored by Upside. So I'm here at the pump and I am gonna claim my cashback offer right now, and they're gonna give me a whopping 57 cents per gallon off on regular. And as you can see, the normal price they're charging is $4.62 a gallon here, and I'm gonna be getting this gas for $4.09 a gallon. So I'm gonna claim the offer here, and then all you gotta do is use your link card to fill up at the pump. Now, while this is filling up, did you know that the Upside app covers over 100,000 grocery stores, gas stations, and restaurants nationwide? I've been using this lately to get cash back on all of my purchases, and I highly recommend you do it as well. So top Upside earners are earning as much as $300 per month in cash back, and if you want to check it out, go ahead and use the link down in the description below. Use code BORDERNARROW to get an extra 25 cents per gallon back on your first tank of gas, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. I think the best buy right now is still buying somewhere in the Midwest for two reasons. Number one is affordability is still the best in the Midwest for a lot of reasons we're not going to talk about right now. And also prices are still poised to go up in many areas of the Midwest, and even if they do come down, they're probably not going to come down by a whole lot because they're not extremely overvalued like the southern part of the country and the northeast and the western part of the country. So you're more insulated from a housing downturn in the Midwest, and a lot of the home prices there are still relatively affordable compared to the local incomes. So that's why I think the Midwest is probably your best bet right now if you're somebody looking to buy and you want somewhere that's affordable. The last question they ask him is, what does all this mean for sellers? Well, we know most sellers move because of a life event, and the first reason people move is a new job. And so now that the labor market's cooling down, you're seeing a decline in residential mobility as well. If you don't expect to have a job in the future, or you expect income growth to slow down, you're less likely to go out and buy a new car or buy a new house. You kind of just sit and wait for something to happen. He also says that sellers are sitting on near record home equity since the pandemic, so they can afford to cut prices, and that's why you're not seeing a ton of forced sales. They're sitting in a very comfortable position. They can pick and choose when to enter the market. Now, for the most part, that is true for a lot of people, but that statement is becoming less and less true for more and more people due to the deteriorating economic conditions, with 25% of the population almost being functionally unemployed, with layoffs and job losses being the highest that they've been since the pandemic. And a lot of these people are people that earn good money. We're talking white collar jobs that earn six figures a year, now suddenly are having to do gig work to go out and try to make ends meet, and even falling behind on mortgage payments. Mortgage delinquencies have been rising over the past few months, and that's due to the economy not being as strong as we're being told. So are we in a crisis situation right now where sellers are being forced to sell their homes on a mass scale? No, not even close. But we could get there, or things can definitely still continue to deteriorate from here and make things worse before they get better. Now, I don't even think for 1 minute that people who watch my channel are going to read this and think that, well, this must mean it's a great time to buy just because the chief economist at Zillow says it is. No, but I want to push back on a lot of these points because, as you can see, a lot of it is just sales tactics. He wasn't wrong about everything. There's some things I agree with him on, but clearly you can see that their motive and agenda is to get you to buy. My motive and agenda is to get you to buy when you feel fully comfortable and you've researched your market to know where things are going to go next. You can withstand a drop in home prices, maybe even going negative equity for a while, and be able to ride through that. That's my motive and agenda on the channel. I want people to be able to handle that sort of situation with ease and not get blindsided once they become a homeowner with all these extra expenses that they never knew about, nobody else ever told them about, and have to watch the value of their home go lower than what they paid for it and freak out and sell at the wrong time. And it's not just me, okay? Ray Dalio, he says to avoid real estate altogether right now. I mean, that's what I'm doing, guys. Like, I have experience in the real estate field. I'm avoiding real estate. I can't think of one good reason to buy right now. None of these things that we just talked about were convincing enough for me. According to Ray Dalio, he says there's 3 reasons why you should not buy real estate right now. It's interest rate sensitive, it's easy to tax, and it's a nailed down asset. And the rate sensitive part means that it's sensitive to inflation. And we see that interest rates to buy a house are still higher than a lot of buyers would like them to be, which means that a lot of people are going to opt out of buying until rates come down, But rates are not going to come down unless inflation comes down, and there is no sign of that happening, at least not yet. On his second point, Ray Dalio said that real estate can be taxed easily, which means that the person who owns the house and their ability to diversify can be limited, which can compromise them financially. And we all know that property taxes have been going nowhere but up over the past few years. In some cases, people have been seeing 40, 50, 60% increases in property taxes in just a few years. And by the way, that's a reminder for me to let you guys know that the new valuations are out in Florida over this past week. So if you live in Florida and you see your property tax assessment going up a lot higher than you wish it would be, make sure you protest it. If you want somebody to protest it for you, I have a link for Ownwell down in the description below. You can check them out. I actually use them myself, and they are in the process of contesting my valuation in Florida right now as we speak. Now, the third reason that Dalio says not to buy real estate is because it's nailed down. So investing in it makes it more difficult to move money from one place to another. Real estate, unlike stocks or other assets, is not very liquid, so it can be difficult for investors to get their money out of a property if they need cash quickly. Usually the only way you can get money fast is by taking a loan, and even that will take a couple of weeks. One thing that Ray Dalio does say that you should be investing in buying right now, though, is to have 15% of your portfolio make up either gold or Bitcoin, or both ideally. I'd like to do both. And you really want to own something outside of the US dollar right now, or the stock market, that actually does well when inflation is a major problem, because inflation is a major problem and is likely going to continue to be for the foreseeable future. He says that if the US doesn't cut the deficit to 3% of the GDP, we risk facing an economic heart attack in the next 3 years. So I think he's probably right. We know we're barreling towards this disaster that just got sped up with raising the debt ceiling in the new big beautiful bill. And so I'm just sitting back with the popcorn and watching for the disaster. I mean, truly, there's not much else you can do as an everyday American. All this stuff is out of our hands. All you can do is be prepared financially to live through hard times, guys. That's really it. Or be a prepper and have years worth of supplies stored up to be used for a rainy day if money gets tight. And you know, a lot of people who listen to this advice from Zillow and all these other big real estate firms a few years ago are having big buyer's remorse right now, because a lot of them are underwater on their mortgages these days. According to ICE Mortgage Technology, which is formerly known as Black Knight, the share of outstanding homeowner mortgages with negative equity who are underwater as of the end of April of 2025 is about 1%. And then when you contrast that with what we saw in September of 2009, a whopping 23% of mortgaged homeowners were underwater on their home. So we are nowhere near levels that we saw during that crisis. But I chalk that up largely to the fact that so many people were underwater on their homes back then due to it being before all of this massive amount of money was injected into the economy. Because after the housing crash happened back then, that's when they started massive quantitative easing and injecting billions into the economy. And then fast forward to the pandemic, they injected over $6 trillion into the economy, which caused massive, massive bouts of inflation, which has caused valuations to be artificially high. So on paper right now, it doesn't look like a lot of people are underwater on their mortgage because of all the inflation that we have seen. But if it wasn't for those massive injections of cash, that might be a different story. We probably wouldn't have too many issues with housing in general right now if we never got those massive injections of cash. That's what led to most of the problems we have right now. Anyways, the point is that 1% of people who hold mortgages are underwater, meaning that they owe more on their house than it's actually worth right now. And if we take a look at where these areas are concentrated, I'll roll this chart on the screen. You can see that Cape Coral, Florida is ground zero for that, where almost 8% of people have negative equity on their home. And it's not just Florida, guys. You have a lot of Florida cities here like Northport, Jacksonville, Deltona, Tampa, but you also got Colorado Springs. You got Little Rock, Arkansas. You got Dallas, Texas. You got Phoenix, Arizona. You got Georgia in here. You got Virginia. You got Memphis, Tennessee. You got Columbia, South Carolina. You got Provo, Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, Dayton, Ohio. So there's a lot of places across the country where homeowners have negative equity. And that's probably going to continue to spread as home values start to creep downwards. And people took massive loans on these properties to buy them a couple of years ago at all-time high prices. And the people who most likely are underwater on their mortgage right now are anybody who bought between 2022 and 2024. But I think that number is going to get extended into the future, even people who are buying right now in 2025, because if prices continue to go down and you buy today and you take Zillow's advice, well, then you could be next being underwater on your mortgage, especially considering most people don't put more than 10 or 12% down. So it doesn't take home prices falling a whole lot for people to be underwater on their mortgage. And that's especially true for people who buy with FHA or a VA loan where you're only putting 0 or 3.5% down. But all this kind of goes back to my video from yesterday on how they're trying to reach so far into the small upsides that we have right now to try and convince people that the economy is not so bad, that now's a good time to buy a house, that people are just rich and flush with cash and people are buying all these cars with cash. 30% of home sales are going towards all cash buyers. Things must be great. Inflation's not so bad. But we all know the truth because we all have to live in the real world, not this made up internet one. And we all have to buy real groceries and pay the real rent and pay the real mortgage and see how much real money is left in our accounts after all that is said and done. And I almost forgot to tell you guys that I'm walking on Peacock Drive in San Rafael, California today. So let me know what you guys are seeing out there. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here. And I'll see you in the next one.